Solar energy is the primary energy source for our planet, as it is responsible for providing energy for vegetation growth and providing habitable temperatures. Energy is generated from the sun by nuclear fusion of hydrogen nuclei to helium. The sun is a main energy source harnessed by natural processes, including photosynthesis. Coal, oil, wood, and natural gas are all produced from a solar origin because of their participation in photosynthesis.
Solar energy can replace fossil fuels with the technologies solar panels, solar thermal power plant, solar fuel cell, and solar water heaters.
Solar thermal power plants are primarily used to concentrate on the sun's energy as a heat source. The heat is used to boil water that then drives a steam turbine, which generates electricity almost in the same process as coal and nuclear power plants, supplying electricity for thousands of people.
Solar water heaters use solar energy to generate heat that can be used to heat water for showering, space heating, and industrial processes. The energy heats the fluid in the solar collectors, which then passes through a heat exchanger in the storage tank, transferring the heat to the water.
In a crystal, the bonds of silicon atoms are made of electrons that are shared between the crystal's atoms. The light gets absorbed, and an electron in one of the bonds is raised into a higher energy level. Since it is no longer bound to the atom, the electron can move around more freely, generating a current. Photovoltaic cells, or solar panels, are often found on spacecrafts, rooftops, and handheld calculators. They are made of semiconductor materials that convert light energy into electricity at an atomic level.
There are two types of semiconductors in a solar cell, called p-type and n-type silicon. The p-type silicon is produced by adding atoms that have one less electron in their outer energy level, boron, than silicon does. Because boron has one less electron than is required to form the bonds with the surrounding silicon atoms, an electron vacancy or hole is created. The n-type silicon is made by including atoms that have one more electron in their outer level than silicon does, phosphorus. Phosphorus bonds with the silicon atoms next to it, but one electron does not bond. Instead, it moves freely around inside the silicon structure.
A solar cell consists of a layer of p-type silicon placed next to a layer of n-type silicon. When sunlight strikes a solar cell, electrons in the silicon are released, which makes holes in the silicon. If this happens in the electric field, the electrons will be moved to the n-type layer and the holes to the p-type layer. When the n-type layer and the p-type layers are connected with a wire, the electrons will move from the n-type layer to the p-type layer, creating a flow of electricity.
Solar energy is sustainable and renewable, meaning that it will never run out. It is also a natural source of energy to convert into electricity or power. Once solar panels are installed, there is little to no maintenance required to make sure that they are working properly. Solar panels are silent when taking in solar energy and converting it into electricity.
For disadvantages, solar energy can be seen as unreliable. Due to the sun not being apparent during the night, the mechanisms that either use solar energy to produce either electricity or heat are unable to do what they are meant to do. Unpredictable weather is also a limiting factor. Weather can often damage solar panels and cover up the sun, therefore the mechanisms would be unable to produce either electricity or heat.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, I say, it's alright.
This is Martin the manatee. He is known as a manatee, but his species is called the West Indian manatee. Martin lives in a freshwater canal in Florida. Martin's species typically inhabits freshwater or marine places like shallow rivers, canals, saltwater bays, estuaries, and coastal areas that can have clear or muddy water. Because of large size, they prefer water reaching at least 1 to 2 meters in depth and are commonly found traveling in waters 3 to 5 meters deep. Waters over 6 meters are generally avoided.
Well known for their gentle, slow-moving nature, manatees have also been known to body surf or barrel roll when playing. They normally rest and feed often. Manatees communicate by squealing underwater to demonstrate fear, stress, or excitement. As you can see in this handsome photo of Martin, West Indian manatees have unique physical features. Martin has a large, flexible upper lip. His lips help guide vegetation into his mouth. Martin has whiskers, called vibrissae, that are found on the surface of his upper lip. Martin's nostrils close once he submerges. Their enormous bodies taper in a flat, paddle-shaped tail. The flippers and strong flat tail help them to swim and glide through the water currents. Manatees are usually seen alone, in pairs, or in small groups of a half a dozen or fewer animals. From above the water's surface, the animal's nose and nostrils are often the only thing visible. Manatees never leave the water, but, like all marine mammals, they must breathe air at the surface. A resting manatee can remain submerged for up to 15 minutes, but while swimming, it must surface every 3 or 4 minutes. Adult West Indian manatees, like Martin, range between 3 and 4.5 meters in length, including their tails. The average weight for a West Indian manatee is 400 kilograms, but ranges between 200 and 1,500 kilograms typically.
Martin is a heterotrophic herbivore. Most of martin species are herbivores, but occasionally they will eat small fish. Martin feeds on abrasive plants, and as a result, his molars are continually replaced throughout life as they wear down. Because of the low nutritional value of the plants consumed, manatees must graze for 6 to 8 hours a day. Manatees, like Martin, can survive on 25% less energy than a typical mammal of similar size. Martin will eat submerged, emergent, floating, and shoreline vegetation. West Indian manatees feed on more than 60 species of plants including turtle grass, manatee grass, shoal grass, mangrove leaves, various algae, water hyacinth, acorns, and hydrilla.
This is a food web showing martin species placed in their environment. In the food web, manatees like Martin are primary consumers. Two theoretical predators for Martin are larger sharks and killer whales. Another predator that is not mentioned in this food web are humans. Humans are predators for manatees because they often are hunting them and killing or injuring them with their motorboats. Reproduction is a touchy subject for Martin, but is a subject that must be covered in order to understand manatees. Mating herds form when a female is an estrus and are made up of bulls pursuing the females. Females may attract up to 20 males, which pursue her for 1 week to 1 month.
Males, like Martin, reach full reproductive maturity between the ages of 9 and 10, but they are capable of mating as early as 2. Females are capable of reproduction at 4 to 5 years of age. Gestation periods for West Indian manatees range from 12 to 14 months, and calves are dependent on their mothers for about 2 years. One calf is produced at a time, however, twins have been occasionally recorded.
Unlike other marine species, manatees actually benefit from increasing ocean acidification. The seagrasses Martin feeds on are capable of dehydrating HCO3, but may appear to use CO2 for at least 50% of their carbon requirements used for photosynthesis, making seagrass more abundant in the environment.
There are not many effects on the habitat and diet of martin. Ocean acidification usually only affects clams and other small species that have shells. Seeing that martin only eats seagrass and other plants, this does not really apply to his diet and habitat.
The current effects ocean acidification has on martin's food web is that with killer whales, their primary food source is salmon, which is heavily affected by ocean acidification, meaning that they will have trouble finding the necessary food to survive. Martin, who is prey to the killer whale, would be able to reproduce.
Possible long-term effects on habitat and diet of martin are that martin's intake of energy will rapidly increase as the seagrass becomes more abundant. Possible long-term effects on the food web are that the food availability for predators will decrease as the organisms such as the zooplankton will become less abundant due to ocean acidification.
You called me out upon the waters, the great